He had the largest army in the Middle East, the unconditional support of the CIA, an incalculable fortune in oil. He called himself King of Kings, heir to Cyrus the Great. In January 1979, he boarded a plane with a small bag and the clothes on his back. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran, the King of Kings, had said he was going on vacation. It wasn't true. He was fleeing. The cameras capture everything. The country watches, and the vacuum he left behind has never been filled. In February 2026, American and Israeli missiles struck military targets across Iran, one of the most direct confrontations between these powers in decades. The Iran the world fears today was born on that January night. In the years that followed the 1953 coup, Reza Pahlavi built something no Iranian ruler had ever built before, a machine of power that was nearly impossible to dismantle. Oil financed everything. With the wealth of the Gulf oil fields, he raised the largest army in the Middle East. He purchased the most advanced fighter jets the United States had to offer. He modernized cities, built universities, factories, roads. In 1963, he launched the White Revolution, an ambitious reform program that included land redistribution, voting rights for women, and accelerated industrialization. But the White Revolution was more than a reform program. It was an ideological declaration. The Shah wanted a secular, modern, imperial Iran, heir to Cyrus and Darius, not to Muhammad and Ali. He wanted to erase 1,400 years of Islamic identity and replace it with another, that of ancient, glorious, pre-Islamic Persia. It was an enormous gamble, because the soul pulsing through the people, in the mosques, in the families, in the streets, was not that of Cyrus. It was that of Hussein. The West applauded him. Time magazine called him a visionary. But there was another side to this machine, and to understand it, we need to go back to when Reza Pahlavi first came to power. He didn't arrive through merit. He arrived through someone else's convenience. In 1941, British and Soviet forces invaded Iran and forced his father to abdicate. His father had grown too close to Nazi Germany, and the country was too valuable to be left in the wrong hands. The son, at 21 years old, was placed on the throne, a useful puppet. And when, in 1953, Prime Minister Mossadegh dared to nationalize Iranian oil, and the Shah ended up fleeing his own country, it was the CIA and MI6 who brought him back. A coup disguised as a popular uprising. Mossadegh arrested, the Shah restored. He knew, better than anyone, that his power had been built by foreign hands, and that awareness haunted him forever. It was that awareness that shaped the darkest tool of his reign, the Savak. The Shah's secret police was considered one of the most efficient and brutal in the world. Trained by the CIA and Israeli Mossad, it penetrated trade unions, universities, mosques, families. Dissidents disappeared. Torture was routine. The Shah knew, and believed it was necessary. He saw Iran as a country that needed to be forced into the 20th century, even if that force came at a cost of blood. It was a gamble, and for decades, it seemed to work. If stories of leaders who built empires and watched them crumble from within are your thing, welcome to Afterthrone. Subscribe. In 1971, the Shah organized a celebration the world would never forget, and Iran would never forgive. To mark 2,500 years of the Persian Empire, he ordered a city of tents to be built in the desert of Persepolis, near the ruins of the capital of Cyrus and Darius. 50 air-conditioned tents, decorated with French silk. The menu, created by the Maxim's restaurant in Paris. Rare wines, caviar, all food imported from Europe. 69 countries represented. Kings, emperors, presidents. Estimates put the cost somewhere between $100 and $300 million spent in just a few days. Meanwhile, much of rural Iran barely had access to basic services. The Shah positioned himself as the heir to Cyrus the Great. A declaration to the world: the empire had returned. For the poor, it was an affront that needed no translation. From exile, Khomeini called it the Festival of Prostitution. The phrase spread. It stuck. Khomeini. Ruhollah Khomeini was an Ayatollah, one of the highest titles in the Shia clerical hierarchy. Learned, austere, dangerously charismatic. He had been arrested and expelled from Iran after publicly attacking the Shah over the White Revolution, women's right to vote, land reform, forced westernization. To him, the Shah was destroying the Islamic soul of the country. And Khomeini began building a network, not of weapons, of cassette tapes. Recorded in exile, first in Iraq, then in Paris, Khomeini's speeches were played in mosques across the country. He said the Shah had sold Iran to the Americans, that he was destroying Islam, that the regime was illegitimate, and overthrowing it was a religious duty. Cassette tape, the cheapest technology in the world, impossible to control, distributed through the very network of clerics the Shah had marginalized for decades. In December 1977, Jimmy Carter visited Tehran and raised a glass in honor of the Shah. An island of stability in a sea of turmoil. 12 months later, Iran was in flames. But it wasn't a single movement. It was a patchwork. Communists, secular nationalists, university students, workers, intellectuals, and, the most organized group of all, Khomeini's followers. What united them was hatred of the regime, the savak, corruption, the feeling that Iran had been sold to the Americans, the glaring inequality between Tehran's cosmopolitan elite and the rest of the country. But in 1978, they were all in the streets together. 1978 was the year everything unraveled, not all at once, but in waves. January, protests in Qom after a government article attacked Khomeini. Police open fire. There are deaths. February, larger demonstrations, more deaths. The Islamic mourning cycle, 40 days, turns each massacre into a new protest. August, cinema wrecks in Abadan, a criminal fire during a packed screening. More than 400 people burned to death. The opposition immediately blamed the savak. The government denied it. The version most accepted by historians today points to radical Islamists, not the regime. But it didn't matter. The narrative had already chosen its culprit, and the regime paid the political price for a massacre it may not have committed. September, Black Friday. The army opens fire on protesters in Jaleh Square. Dozens killed, perhaps hundreds. The numbers were never confirmed. The Shah hesitated at every one of these crossroads. He didn't repress with enough force to crush. He didn't concede quickly enough to survive. The middle ground is the choice of someone who still believes a middle ground exists. There was a detail his generals knew, and that he was slow to accept. The Shah was sick, lymphoma, diagnosed in 1974, treated in absolute secrecy. While the country was falling apart, the man who needed to make the most brutal decisions of his life was weakened by a disease that not even his closest allies knew about. Washington was making decisions about Iran without knowing the leader was dying. The Shah was making decisions about Iran without the clarity they demanded. If you've made it this far, you already know this story can't end well. Leave a comment below with what you think he could have done differently, if there was anything left to do. And stay with us. In November 1978, in a gesture of desperation, the Shah appointed Shapur Bakhtiar as prime minister, a liberal politician who had spent years openly criticizing the regime. It was an unthinkable concession. The Shah was essentially handing over part of his power to an adversary in an attempt to show he was yielding. It didn't work. The Shah's allies saw it as betrayal. The opposition in the streets saw it as the maneuver of a dying regime. Bakhtiar's own party expelled him for accepting the position. He governed for 36 days. In December, millions of Iranians took to the streets on Ashura, the most important date in the Shia Islamic calendar. The streets no longer wanted reform. They wanted an end. And when a revolution gains a religious soul, tanks don't solve anything. His generals presented him with two options: full suppression a bloodbath that might work or might accelerate the collapse, or leave. He left. January 16th, 1979. When the plane took off, soldiers who had been guarding the streets threw their weapons to the ground. The largest army in the Middle East dissolved, without a battle. Khomeini left Paris in February. When the Ayatollah's plane landed in Tehran, 5 million people took to the streets. A journalist asked Khomeini what he felt returning to Iran after 15 years of exile. "Nothing," said Khomeini. It was the answer of a man who had no need for emotion. The revolution was already done. The Shah believed the exile would be temporary, that the United States would intervene, that his allies would move, that order would return. It didn't. Egypt, Morocco, the Bahamas, Mexico. At each stop, the same pattern: initial hospitality, diplomatic pressure, a quiet departure to the next destination. Washington watched in silence. Carter didn't want the Shah on American soil. He knew it would be a provocation to the new Iranian government. But in October 1979, doctors confirmed the cancer had advanced. The Shah needed treatment only the United States could provide. Carter yielded. 2 days later, November 4th, 1979, Iranian students scaled the walls of the American embassy in Tehran. 52 diplomats were taken hostage. The demand? Extradite the Shah. What followed were 444 days of crisis. Carter was paralyzed. A rescue attempt ended in disaster in the Iranian desert, with broken helicopters and dead soldiers. Carter lost the presidential election in part because of it. The hostages were only released on the day Ronald Reagan was inaugurated. The relationship between the United States and Iran never recovered. He returned to Egypt. Sadat received him again, without conditions. He was the only one. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi died on July 27, 1980, in Cairo, in exile, at 60 years old. Anwar Sadat gave him a state funeral. He was the only world leader to do so. Jimmy Carter did not attend. No Western leader attended. The man who for decades had been photographed alongside American presidents, who had received the most powerful people in the world in Tehran, who had raised the largest army in the Middle East, died practically alone. And the country he left behind was transformed beyond recognition. In the Shah's time, women could study, work, and move freely without a veil. There were bars, Western cinema, mixed social gatherings. Tehran had a cosmopolitan elite that lived like Paris. Iran was an ally of the United States and of Israel. There was an Israeli embassy in Tehran. What Khomeini built in its place was something radically different. The veil made mandatory by law, alcohol banned, Western music censored. Israel declared an illegitimate state, its embassy handed over to the PLO. A nuclear program launched in secret. The Revolutionary Guards created as a parallel army with their own economic and military power. Hezbollah funded in Lebanon, militias supported in Iraq, Syria, Yemen. 2 countries, same territory, separated by a January night. In February 2026, when American and Israeli missiles struck military targets in Iran, what was being bombed was the direct heir of the 1979 revolution. The nuclear program, the Revolutionary Guards, the militias spread across the Middle East, the ideological hostility toward the West. None of it would exist without Khomeini. And Khomeini only came to power because the Shah fell. The Iran the world fears today was born on the night an emperor boarded a plane, believing he would return soon. He had spent decades trying to convince Iran that its soul was Persian before it was Islamic, that Cyrus was greater than Hussein, that the future was worth more than memory. In the desert of Persepolis, he had invoked Cyrus the Great. In the mosques, Khomeini invoked Hussein, with genuine tears, with genuine pain, with an intensity that no Parisian banquet could ever match. The revolution that destroyed him didn't arrive with tanks. It arrived with cassette tapes in the mosques, with the name of Hussein in the streets, with a soul he tried to erase and that never died. The Shah was not brought down by his enemies. He was devoured by the country he never managed to understand. If this story made you think about what remains of a leader when power disappears, you need to know another one. A queen who lost her kingdom, her ally, and her freedom in a matter of days, but who refused to let her enemy decide her end, and chose the only thing that was still in her hands, the decision over her own death. And that choice says more about her than any victory she ever won in life. You'll find the link on screen now and in the first pinned comment. Thank you for staying until the end. If these stories resonate with you, share this with someone who will appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel and leave your comment below. See you in the next one.